Good morning, y'all. I am in my bed with my coffee. I have a Scorpio mug today because my kiddo is a Scorpio, but I also have a lot of stuff in my 8th house, which is the house of Scorpio. So I've got a little Scorpio energy myself. So I was teaching a private tarot class yesterday, and I was letting the women, these were 2 women that were brand new to tarot. One of them didn't even have a deck yet, and the other one had just gotten a deck, but it had like very minimalist type pictures on it, like just like circles and lines and things. And so I was showing them a lot of my different tarot decks so that they could get a feel for how tarot looks across a bunch of different decks. And they each chose a deck of mine to work with for our class. And it was so amazing to watch them come alive. Hello, good morning, Crystal. How are you? It's good to see y'all. And Nicole and Charlene. Welcome. David, hello. In Turkey. We're just international up in here. We got people from all over the world checking in. Tam, good morning, good morning. So with tarot, there's like a million decks out there, right? And I'm always telling y'all to find a deck that really speaks to you. And it's important, even more so now than it used to be, because of how many options there are. The most important thing about tarot, even though you're accessing a system that people have written the definitions of the cards about for years and years and years, the most important thing is how you read the cards in your deck and what they say to you. And so you need cards that you connect with, that actually speak to you in multiple ways, in multiple layers. Okay, set my coffee down. Oh, pause. Let's talk about coffee for a quick sec, because I've started doing this thing with my coffee that's absolutely delicious. I put coconut milk in it, but I keep the coconut milk in the fridge so it gets all like thick, like a clump of cream, and I stir it in and add a splash of oat milk. It's so good. I don't need any. I used to like sweeteners or those sweet creams in my coffee, but I'm not doing much dairy these days. And like the coconut cream just gives it this like creaminess, this richness, and this sweetness that is like so good. Okay. All right. Back to tarot. Coffee's important too, though. So, we're going to talk about the Lover's card in particular, because it's one of the cards in the major arcana, those 22 cards that represent bigger energies. It's also a card that can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. And so I want to use this as an example, because when you are working with different decks, especially if you're someone who's reading with different types of decks, sometimes people can get hung up on, they get really familiar with a card in one deck and really used to the interpretation of it. Like, let's say this one, okay? This is a more traditional depiction of the lovers. There's this angel-like figure up here, this man and this woman. There's like a divide between them. Kind of looks like Adam and Eve. Here's a tree and a snake and an apple. So looks like Garden of Eden-ish. Sometimes the man is actually standing between 2 women, and he's kind of like, his hand's moving towards one and he's looking at the other. And I actually don't have a deck that has that today with me, because I've decks at work, decks at home, decks up in the mountains, I don't know, decks everywhere. So there's this more traditional depiction though, and it's sort of like, okay, like, what's going on here? We're in the Garden of Eden, like, there's a choice to be made. Am I gonna eat the apple? Like, what does that mean for our relationship if I eat the apple? So the lovers, a lot of people hear lovers and they think it's just about romantic relationships. And in a card like this, it could be read that way, but there are, again, the layers, because there's like some type of overarching, like, what is actually in my highest good here? Who am I listening to? Who am I being influenced by? Maybe I really want to eat the apple. Maybe I feel powerless because I'm this dude right here, and this person I like love or feel committed to is maybe gonna eat this apple, and that's gonna like really affect my life because I'm gonna get kicked out of like this paradise and have to go like survive out in the world. Who knows? There's lots of ways we can read this, right? There's something dividing these two people, and there's an overarching influence that's like, oh, are you sure you want to eat that apple? And meanwhile, there's like a little snake over here like, do it, eat the apple, do it, okay? Personally, I'm a fan of eating the apple, but that's just me. So, I also like the angels, though. I'm down with the angels. There's lots here, and depending on who you are, you're going to read this card differently. But now, look at the lovers in this deck. This is the Numinous Tarot, and it's a very new deck. It's super inclusive. It's very modernized. And it has chosen to show the lovers with a whole bunch of different people, all connected by this star. I think it's a 7-pointed star. I haven't really counted. But this card is depicting love in a broader way, that we have lots of different types of love for lots of different people in our lives, and that love is not just between a man and a woman, it's not just romantic, etc. Good morning, Patty. Good morning, Laura. Thanks for being here. So, this depiction of the lovers speaks to some of the other meanings of the card. There is a sense of very deep love at a soul level, this profoundly deep love. So, if I'm using this deck and I pull this card, I'm actually gonna read the card based on what it says in this deck. Yes, I have an awareness that that's not the only meaning of the lovers, but also when I'm working with different decks, I read the card based on the actual card in front of me. So I might do a reading for one person using this deck, and the Lover's card is not even about a relationship. It's about a choice they're facing in their life where they feel like, oh gosh, like I have multiple influences here and I feel a little helpless and this is a really important decision and I really don't know what to do. Okay, so that's how I would read that card, most likely, if I was using this deck. This is the Everyday Tarot deck. If I'm using my Numinous Tarot deck and this card shows up for a client, I'm going to read it more as looking at all of the ways. Maybe this person is really wanting a romantic relationship and it's not available right now, but they have like all of this other support in their lives. There's actually a whole lot of love that they might be overlooking. It doesn't replace or make up for their desire for a romantic partnership, but it is saying like, hey, like, let's look at all the ways you're nourished, so that you're not feeling just completely in a place of despair or bereft. And maybe as you engage more with this other love in your life, that you meet that person that you want a romantic relationship with. The other beautiful thing about this card is we live in a world that's increasingly non-monogamous, and so love doesn't have to just be between a man and a woman, between two people. Like, this is a much more reflective of our current society take on the lovers, that maybe I am in love with more than one person, and maybe I'm in love with a man and a woman. Maybe I'm in love with, you know, all kinds of options, that it's not, love doesn't look just one way, and we're evolving into a world where love looks a lot of different ways. And that's beautiful. Like, this card is really, really pretty. And you can't really see it because it's tiny. There's like flowers all over them. They're holding hands. It's like, yay, we love each other. It's a world. They're making a world of love. Now in this deck, this is my Osho Zen deck. If I was using this deck, it's like two figures facing each other. And they're kind of androgynous, you know? It doesn't have to be a man and a woman. And they have their faces facing each other. We have some sacred geometry. And then in this heart in here, they're embracing each other. And this is about this really deep, it speaks to the Lovers, the aspect of the Lovers card that represents that soul bond, that seeing yourself in the other, seeing a reflection of yourself, coming into a space where you can deeply embrace another person at that soul level, that your soul can meet theirs. And there's just unconditional love. So sometimes we do interpret the Lover's card as more romantic love. In my Housewives deck, that's how it's depicted, but it also comes with a warning. So in this deck, I would read it differently yet again. It says man and woman in their car, but they're in love. They're like, oh, I'm so in love, oh my gosh. But what's the car doing? The car is free falling into the water. So this card speaks to more a shadow side of the Lovers, in that sometimes we get so swept up in romantic love that we start forgetting everything else that's going on around us, that we might be in a dangerous situation, that we might be in a situation that's asking us to pay attention, to wake up, to get out of this fog. If this card showed up, if I was using this deck, I wouldn't be talking about, oh, you have this deep soulmate connection. I would be like, who are you dating right now? You might need to pay attention to some things. Bailey, good morning. Hi. So in this deck, I'm going to read the card that's showing up. Read the card in front of you. I'm hoping I'm conveying that you have full permission to don't think you always have to interpret the card the same way. You shouldn't. Tarot is not a static practice. It's a dynamic practice. It's a fluid practice. It's an intuitive practice. So you can work with your knowledge of the cards, but your readings are going to be more potent and more accurate. There's a reason you have this particular deck and you're reading for this particular person, because I will feel it strongly, partly because I read so much and I have so many decks. I can really feel like I'll go to reach for one deck that I like, that I want to use, and I will feel it, not for this client, not today, and it's like, come over here and get this other deck. And sometimes it surprises me, because a lot of times I'm doing readings for clients I've seen before. These are people I know. And I'm like, wait, really, this deck? Like, this does not fit with her personality. This does not seem to match what he's gonna be asking me about today. And yet, when I honor that, it's always the right choice. And there's a reason. And it's part of the reason is because these cards can be interpreted very, very differently depending on the deck you're using. So don't think you have a faulty deck. If you have a deck that speaks to you, or that you can really see different layers in, and that you really love, it doesn't matter how minimalist it is, or how vibrant it is, or how much is going on in the card. It just matters that you have a connection to that card, that you can look at the card and get a feel of it, and then translate that feeling into words that speak to different situations in people's lives. So none of these interpretations of the Lovers is wrong. This isn't wrong just because it focuses on romantic love and like, yikes, watch out. This isn't wrong because it focuses more on like divine love, spiritual love, soul love. This one's not wrong because it's like all kinds of love and non-monogamy and like love as something that pulls us all together. And this one's not wrong because it's very like biblical and like you have a choice and it's like time to make a decision. None of them are wrong. They're just different interpretations. And the Lovers doesn't just mean romantic love, okay? So it's going to be interpreted different ways. Sometimes it literally just means a choice. Sometimes it means a situation where you're feeling helpless or torn. Sometimes it does mean, oh my gosh, you have met someone that is hugely impactful in your life and you're probably falling in love with this person and you might not want to admit it. What does Bailey say? My She-Wolf deck got ruined yesterday. But I was super disconnected and kind of angry at that deck anyway, so I agree the deck will really tell you. Oh gosh, yikes. I'm sorry your deck got ruined, but it does sound like not a bad thing. So, exactly. If the deck is not meant to be working with you, like, because again, these aren't just cards. We've actually designated that these cards represent energies. So the card becomes an extension of the currents of energy we're working with. And because of that, weird stuff happens with the cards. All the time. All the time. Like, I will have my entire deck, all the cards are face down, and I'll start to, like, fan it out, and one card will be face up. It was not like that before. Like, I know that. I'm very careful with my decks. I take really good care of them. I made sure they're all face down. And then one card's face up, and then when I look at it, it's the same card that jumped out of my deck the day before, and that I pulled the day before, and that when my friend did a reading for me, it came up. Stuff like that happens. And it's because, again, we have asked these cards to speak to energies that are active in our lives, and they're doing that. They're doing that, and things will happen. I want to show this last depiction of the Lovers as well, and this is I don't know if you can see, but it speaks to one other layer of the Lovers that I really like. It's two stags, or elk. I think they're elk in this deck. This is the Raven's Prophecy deck. One is dark haired and one is light haired, and their antlers are entwined and their heads are pressed together, antlers entwined. This one represents that yin and yang aspect of the Lovers, of that yang energy or masculine energy, that feminine energy, and the ways they can come together, and the power in that, the balance, the harmony. But they're still separate, right? The antlers are intertwining, but they're not stuck there. Or maybe they are. You might read this card as like, oh yikes, you might be getting stuck in something. But maybe it's something you need to be. Maybe like you're actually being pulled into a space that is bringing you into a deeper balance. Maybe it's complementing something in your life, or inviting out parts of you that were more muted, but these parts come louder, they grow as you are in partnership with this other energy, this other person. It doesn't have to be a person, it could be a situation, it could be a job. Like, it depends. Like, if you're just doing a reading about someone's job and you get the Lovers card, again, depending on the deck you're using, there's a lot of information. You don't assume, oh god, there's a workplace romance. You know, Lovers card does not just mean a lover, okay? It means all kinds of things. So really work with your deck and trust your deck. I think a lot of times people start to distrust their deck when they read about the meaning of a card or see the card in someone else's deck, usually someone that they think is a better reader than they are. And they see that person's interpretation, and then they start to question themselves and question their cards. And that's like the worst thing you can do when you're trying to read tarot. Don't doubt yourself and don't doubt your cards. Obviously, know that you're always learning. Know that you're always going to expand and grow in your understanding and your fluency with the cards. I'm not saying don't look at how other people read or what they're doing, but don't use that to lessen your own connection with your cards, because there's so many decks and they're all different. And even if we're all using the same deck, there's layers in every card. Even when it's like this card with these Lovers, it could be like, oh my gosh, this dangerous situation, but also like they really do seem happy and in love. And maybe that love will carry them through this dangerous time. Like, there's layers here, and you have to trust yourself and what you're feeling. And if you're in a reading with multiple cards, the other cards are going to contribute to how you interpret that card. We'll talk about that another time. But don't doubt yourself. Trust yourself with the cards. Nicole says, oh my god, I love that deck. What was it? The one with the stags. This deck is the Raven's Prophecy deck, and it's a really beautiful deck. It has ravens, it has elk, or I'm pretty sure the booklet that comes with it says they're elk. Elk, ravens, candles. The Queen of Wands is just this like mouth, these like juicy red lips with like fire coming out of it. It's one of my favorite Queen of Wands I've ever seen. So yeah, it's a beautiful deck. I'll show it to you next time I see you. Or maybe I'll use it in the next video I do so you can see more of it. But yes, when you love a deck, check it out because it's speaking to you, right? This is how I find a lot of decks that I love and that I use. It's like I feel something. I've learned to trust that feeling. The most recent deck I got, I was with a friend and she was showing it to me and I was like, the last thing I need is another deck. Except, is it really the last thing I need? Because I kind of do this work for a living. Okay, whatever. I have a lot of decks, so I have enough decks to do readings for people. It's not that I truly needed another deck, but I'm looking at the images and I'm like, this is a really neat deck. This deck is super inclusive. It's got people with walkers. It's got people with disabilities. It's got people that are super all kinds of queer. It's a beautiful deck, and I think it's important to have decks that reflect the people in our world and the people I work with and the people I am. And so I was just like, I need to get this deck. And I went online to like purchase it because you can do everything from your phone these days. And like right then the money dropped in, like someone booked a session with me and like it was like the universe being like, yes, go ahead and get this deck. This has happened the last 2 times I've gotten decks. So it's energy. We're working with energy. Trust the energy. And now I have a beautiful new deck that really is reflective of my friends and my community in ways that none of my other decks are. And that's important to me as a reader. It's important to me as a human. So yeah, I'm going to go play with that deck today. All right, I'm going to wrap this up, but send me any questions you have, and I'll see you again in a couple days, or maybe next week, because I'm about to go on a little mini vacation. But maybe I'll do a video from there. We'll see. Remember, coconut milk in your coffee is where it's at. All right, bye, y'all.